Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Colby. I'm the instructor for Pima Medical Institute's critical thinking class. I wanted to make a video today to, one, kind of introduce myself in person, so to speak, and to go over our lesson for the week and the discussion expectations, just kind of provide an overview or a supplementary little lesson for what we're doing this week. So let me share the screen so that we can take a look at the actual announcement that I posted. Make sure you're checking checking the Blackboard, of course, Blackboard for announcements regularly. I'll be posting announcements pretty much at least once a week at the start of the week, usually twice a week, but at least once a week at the start of the week to kind of go over what is happening for that particular week, right? So this week we are actually digging into critical thinking a little bit. Our lesson is called Becoming a Critical Thinker, and it is focusing on the importance of critical thinking itself. Critical thinking is a process of examining what we think we know and how we know what we know, and what logical steps did we take to reach our conclusions about aspects of the world. Did we really think these things through? Or do we just sort of go with the flow of what society says, our environment says, etc.? So our work for the week is an obedience discussion. This discussion runs from Wednesday the 4th through Sunday the 8th, and first posts need to be made by Friday the 6th. And you always need to make a few replies to your classmates in order to earn full credit. This discussion involves viewing a series of short videos on YouTube regarding this fascinating psychological experiment, and then responding to a few questions about the videos. So I want to quickly go into the actual discussion and show you what we're talking about. So here is the lesson, Becoming a Critical Thinker, and our obedience discussion. The full prompt here. So you're going to watch a video about the Milgram study. The Milgram study was this sort of weird psychological experiment in which a person is led to believe that on the other side of a room or of a wall or of a glass, that you can't see through, that there is a person who is hooked up to a machine that is going to electrocute them for every wrong answer they get of a series of quiz questions. And the person who the experiment is actually all about is the one who is giving the questions, and also for each wrong answer having to administer the shocks. And the voltage of the shocks continues to rise with each wrong answer. So, I mean, to begin with, this sounds kind of like a fun game, like, oh, you got a wrong answer, here's a little shock. But the voltage continues to rise and continues to rise with each wrong answer until it is in, fatal ranges. And sort of the trick, or what the experiment is kind of studying, is this idea that the teacher or the administrator of the study is sort of standing there as this authority figure. And every time the participants are like, I don't want to continue, like this is starting to become dangerous, the administrator or the authority figure says, please continue with the experiment, or we need you to continue. And what's crazy is that the vast majority of people press on to fatal or near fatal levels of voltage. Now, remember, there's not actually anybody on the other side of the room getting the shocks, but as far as that person knows, as far as that participant knows, there is. And yet something about the experiment, or about the idea that the authority figure is telling them it is okay, causes them to continue on with the experiment. So that's what the discussion is all about. The next thing I want to show real quick is this presentation on becoming a critical thinker. I won't go through the whole thing with you, but I just want to touch on a couple of key points and make sure that we are all on the same page. Okay, so think of this as kind of an introduction to critical thinking as a whole. A critical thinker is one who makes the conscious decision and effort to analyze, reason, and react accordingly to the world. More plainly, a critical thinker is one who questions everything through rational logic. So the roots of critical thinking date back, at least in the Western world, to philosophical skepticism in ancient Greece about 360 BCE with this guy, Firo of Ellis. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. But essentially, this belief system of skepticism was the idea that we can't, they sort of thought that you couldn't really know anything, that you needed to question everything. And even essentially just that beliefs and opinions are no longer sufficient. You need to know why you believe things. You need to know why you hold opinions. There needs to be logic and evidence for those. And that's a huge change in the way that the world thought. Question everything became the rule. So for example, Thales, who's another early Greek philosopher, pre-Socratic, meaning before Socrates. Somehow we know that Thales looked like this. I really don't know how that is possible that we know how Thales looked, but Thales lived in a time and place in which everything was thought to be a result of the gods. Things like tsunamis and floods and droughts were all caused by the gods. And Thales is like the first person in that society, or really in the world, who is thinking the things like, maybe we didn't get rain for our crops because we planted in the wrong season, or maybe everything flooded because we live really close to several rivers and it's been raining a lot, right? That it's not just or that is a rainy season even, that there are reasons, observable sort of scientific observation-based reasons for things. And that's not really how the world was functioning until then. So critical thinkers then are people who use evidence. They demand proof rather than trusting in tradition and belief. They consider opposition. They recognize that there may be different answers to a question and that each of those answers might have varying degrees of logic. And they avoid opinions. They understand that what is of common opinion might be completely false, that one's own opinion without research and evidence supporting it doesn't really matter that much. Like your own personal experience about things, your own personal opinion based on your personal experience is entirely subjective. And critical thinkers are ultimately trying to move beyond subjective opinion. This leads us to the stages of cognitive development. If you have read through the textbook some, there is conversation about the stages of cognitive development, with stage 1 being dualism, everything is right or wrong, A or B. Stage 2 being relativism, so you start to think things through a little bit, and the general conclusion that people come to is that there's just no right or wrong answers, everything is kind of subjective and out there. And then ultimately, if everything is subjective and out there, how do we make decisions? How do we live our lives? And that's stage 3, commitment, where we have to make decisions based on evidence and reason. And I would argue that we need to be open to re-examining those decisions on a regular basis as new evidence is provided to us. So critical thinking and skepticism allow room for an individual to change one's mind upon new information and evidence. And what this results in is that the idea of knowledge becomes a much more fluid concept. It's always being tested and questioned and replaced and changed and altered as more logical arguments become clear. Think about all the things throughout history, for example, that we once thought were true, like the Earth is the center of the universe, or the Earth is flat, or whatever else. And then new evidence convinced us otherwise. Okay, I think I'll stop there with the presentation. If you're interested, it's posted on the Google or on the Blackboard for the course in the announcements. You can read through it more. That's it. That's this little introduction to this week. You have the obedience discussion. That's your only work for the week other than reading. Remember, the obedience discussion goes from Wednesday to Sunday. First posts need to be in by Friday, and you need to get a couple of replies into your classmates. That's it. If you have questions about anything, I am always happy to help you out. Please just email me, text me, give me a call, something. Text and email probably work best. But if it's urgent, you can call. And that's it. I hope this helped you guys some. I'll try to make videos like this pretty much every week. I might skip 1 or 2, but for the most part, I'll try to make videos regularly for the class. Have a good week, and I will talk to you guys later.